This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by Podcast Startup, the learning platform for creators with a voice. Podcast Startup covers tech, production, editing, marketing, and more. I know what it feels like to be slowed down by challenges revolving around fear, procrastination, and tech, yet I've recorded and published over 260 podcast episodes. To learn more about Podcast Startup, go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup, and to get free podcasting startup tips right to your inbox. Again, visit unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to learn more and to get your free podcasting startup tips. This is the Unstarving Musician podcast. I'm your host, Robonzo. The podcast features conversations with me, indie music artists, and industry professionals, and it's all intended to help other indie music artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Welcome to another episode, chickadees. It is a pleasure as always to be in your earbuds or on your car speakers or Sonos, Alexa. Yes, you can hear this podcast on Alexa, or wherever you listen or are listening. My guest for this episode is David Andrew Wiebe. He thinks about creativity, music, and entrepreneurship, and leadership in everything he does. He's actually a return guest, having appeared in episode 132 of The Unstarving Musician. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. But before we get to my conversation with Andrew, I would like to remind you that The Unstarving Musician is made possible through the generosity of its listeners, people like you. If you love what I do, if you find value in what I do here on the podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor or the show notes for this episode to learn about options for offering your support. The Unstarving Musician accepts direct financial support, and we very much appreciate it, but there are several other ways to support the podcast and help keep it going. Again, you can learn more about those options for supporting the Unstarving Musician podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor. One more thing before we get to David Andrew Wiebe. It is an installment of listener email readings, something I do with much irregularity. This is maybe like the third or fourth time in the history of the podcast I think that I've done it. I don't know. I'd have to go back and see. But I haven't done it a lot. But I wanted to share this one. So in my last email to the Unstarving Musician Project community, I wrote about, among other things, the potential benefits of giving less of a shit to the extent that I might, for example, diligently ignore inbound messages to guard my creative time. Well, reader and subscriber of the Unstarving Musician Project email list, Kevin, had this to say about my comments. In regards to giving a shit, do it, man. Give a shit. In fact, give more of a shit than anyone connected to the shit you're talking about. Giving a shit equals caring. We should all care more, and along with that, allow ourselves to be compassionate toward others and give ourselves a break. It isn't always easy to care when others don't have what it takes to be present in the moment and see a wider perspective than their emotional state allows them for. Peace to you and Sammy. You mean more to me than I've ever really had a chance to tell you. Hopefully someday we'll talk about that. Kevin, that is really nice. And thanks for reading the email. And for giving a shit. Kevin is a drummer and working musician in the San Francisco Bay Area. We are acquainted. I've always loved his drumming, and in case you couldn't tell, he's a very nice man. So thanks again, Kevin. David Andrew Wiebe, as I was saying, or perhaps inferred, is a musician. He's also a composer and published author with 3 bestsellers. Among his books is the 2022 edition of the Music Entrepreneur Code, which David says is more ninja than its predecessor. He is also host-creator of the New Music Industry podcast, on which I have been an honored guest. You can hear me in recent episode 259, where we talk about growth and other things. And he wants to share, David Andrew Wiebe, he really wants to share what he knows with musicians, especially musicians who want to get ahead. Related to this, he has a new thing he calls Elite Players All Access Pass, which we discuss in this conversation. We also talk about mindset, confidence, incremental success tracking, reprioritizing milestones, his forthcoming album, the leadership program in which he participates, and an updated, more ninja music entrepreneur code, the book. For all things David Andrew Wiebe, go to musicentrepreneurhq.com. In case you can't remember that, I will include it in the show notes as well. Please enjoy my chat with David Andrew Wiebe. Your hair's grown out since I saw you last.
Did I have it shorter?
I think so.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was kind of curly and all that. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was down to here last year, so or earlier this year even.
All right. I'm ready. Are you?
I'm ready.
By the way, do you like to go by David or David Andrew, DAW?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you throw something in there, I'll respond.
All right. David Andrew Wiebe, thank you for joining me for a round 2 on the Unstarving Musician. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm stoked. I'm fired up. Happy to be back.
I gathered from our somewhat recent email exchange. Now, where are you living these days?
Yeah, I'm in Abbotsford, BC. And so I think when we last talked, I was also in Abbotsford. I'd gone back and forth a little bit between Calgary. I actually got stuck during the pandemic for about 3 months in Calgary after playing a gig in Drumheller, which is near Calgary. But I finally made my way back. And so, still traveling once or twice a year to somewhat nearby cities or towns just to enjoy. But other than that, the political healthcare climate is what it is. So staying put in Abbotsford, BC.
Well, good. And how's the weather there today, by the way?
I think today it's actually sunny. It's a rare occasion. The forecast showed rain all week for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks even. And I guess we have a break in the rain for now. There's been a little bit of flooding. People might know that from the news. They may or may not, but I have not been affected. Fortunately, it's really just the people living in the flats. At some point, they drained the Sumas Lake nearby here, which is, we're just at the Canada-US border, and people decided to build out their farms and homes and things in that area. And apparently every 20 years or so, that Sumas Lake just comes back, kind of like the same way New Orleans is sinking, right? So it is what it is, but I think for the most part, we're doing all right, even with supply lines being what they are.
Oh, good. And I'm glad that you're not heavily affected by any of that, but that's too bad for the folks that are, and I wish them all well, given that they're your neighbors, whether they're really close by or sort of close by.
Yeah, amen. Definitely.
So let's talk about growth. I know that there's a bit of growth that's been going on for you, and I suspect that maybe you have some things to say about growth for people in music in general too.
Absolutely. I think when we talked about 2 years ago, unbelievably, right? I think went back and forth on email and stuff like that in between, but I had just finished a 3-month-long leadership program, and now I'm in a year-long leadership program, and I'm in quarter 3. So that means I've already completed 6 months of it, but this is even more intensive, probably the most intensive thing in my life. And we set some really aggressive project deadlines and goals. And it's really about taking your life 1 quarter at a time and planning out what you're going to do. You have your milestones, you have your weekly mini milestones, and little by little, you plan it all out and take the actions and create teams in every area of your life as much as possible to accomplish these ends. And so, yeah, growth has really meant like we put together the membership that I've been sort of dragging my feet on because I didn't like the technology that was out there that we could build a proper online academy on, or because of time and resources and having the right ideas. And so that finally got built out, which I'm really excited about. And last quarter, we continued to engage in similar sort of activity, but one of the goals was to raise some money for an organization called Sahakarini. And during their lifetime, my dad and my grandparents gave a lot to this organization. As of this year, they all passed away. Both of my grandmas passed away this year. And
Oh, sorry.
so, yeah, as sort of a legacy, we really wanted to raise some funds. And between the two quarters, we ended up raising $2,300 for Sahakarini, and that was amazing. And one of the big things that ended up working for us was a 50-50 draw, which we did it at like the last minute in the last quarter. And over the course of 2 days, raised $1,100. And all of that ended up getting donated to Sahakarini. So I was really excited about that. And I think for any musicians listening, it's really important to reflect on what the last year has done for you. Like, we're getting into December again, right? And so somewhat naturally, everybody moves into reflection mode. But I think sometimes we don't do it intentionally, deliberately. We don't ask ourselves the questions like, what's making me happy? What's not? What projects are really taking away my energy? Which ones are giving me more energy and making me feel alive? And what lessons did I learn, both from my victories and failures? I'm not big on staying in the failure mode, right? There's only something to be learned from failure. The event itself is neutral anyway. So it's just our meaning makes it failure. It's just a matter of looking at the event and seeing what could be learned from this.
Cool. I really like that. And you're right in that we're not always as intentional as we should be, I should say, about that reflection and thinking back on what has been productive and making us happy. That's I think a great exercise for all of us. Real quick, lest I forget, tell us about the cause for which you were raising money, just for people who don't know about it, myself included.
Yeah, I guess most people will not have heard of it because it is a small operation running out of Camrose, Alberta. So that's central Alberta, about an hour from Edmonton. Most people will probably have heard of West Edmonton Mall. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they support the education of underprivileged children in South America, and also related projects like, wells and medical care and stuff like that. And yeah, so they've been running for many, many years now, and they've done a lot of great things. And you can find a little bit about that on their website. And there's some pictures and some projects that they're working on right now. So although it's not like the state of the art website or anything like that, you can definitely get a sense of what they're all about.
Okay, great. I'll make sure to get the URL from you so we can put that in the show notes for anybody who's interested in learning more. Now, the leadership course that you've talked about, is that anything that's specific for the music biz, or is it a little bit broader and you've applied it to your world in music and elsewhere?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit like Rick Barker this way, that like I'm always trying different things, taking different courses, getting coaching, being in mastermind groups. We talked about that last time as well. Mm-hmm. And that is in an effort to grow myself first and foremost, and second, to bring those insights and ideas and tips back to music. Some of those land and some of those don't land. And that's sort of the fun part about it. It's like, this is what I'm getting, and that I share with my audience. And some of it is like, yeah, I don't know how I would, I'm not totally seeing what you're seeing right now. And then other things, they're just like, oh my gosh, really? Is that how it works? So it's pretty fun to kind of have that hit and miss. And music careers all hits and misses anyway. And most of your gigs early on, because you suck, are misses. And as you get better, they become more hits. And so that's been really fun for me to explore different programs. And at this point in my life, it felt like what I needed. Nobody wants to get stuck or be in a rut. And the truth is, life is all just about incremental improvement. There's very few breakthroughs. The breakthroughs only come from things you're not seeing. So things that you're not seeing, you can't do anything about that. You can only continue to read and engage in courses and podcasts and videos in search of something that might bring a new, fresh perspective into your world that causes the breakthrough. But for the most part, life is just like incremental, day by day progress, and that can sometimes be discouraging and disheartening. And that's why I felt like I needed this program in my life right now, and that I would be able to bring a lot of great things back from it to share.
I like that. What have you learned, or what are your tricks for tracking incremental change? Because I mean, even for myself, I was talking about this recently with a group that I chat with every couple of weeks about not being great at looking at the progress and sort of writing it down, reflecting on it. What are your tricks for that, and what do you advise people to do based on your learnings and your experience?
Yeah, a big thing that we've been doing, we have this spreadsheet for each of our projects in each quarter, and we kind of fill out our milestones. Everything is sort of in past tense in the milestones. So the final condition of satisfaction, which is your achievement or your goal, is basically worded as we have accomplished blank. And so from there, it's just a matter of unfolding it. But part of what you're talking about is just being present to, like, what did actually get done? Here's what I said I was gonna do. Here are all the little to-do lists and conversations and promises and requests that I put together in my milestones. But what actually got done? And so there's actually a big section on the right-hand side called acknowledgements. This is where we put, like, this is what actually happened. And so when I started filling that out last quarter, I didn't do it by week. I did it milestone by milestone. So there's like basically 4 of those in a month, depending on how you divide the month, obviously. And so I would do that, milestone by milestone. And I just found that, like, okay, so, I sold X number of books. I won 3 or 4 awards. I was covered in these magazines and these podcasts and these outlets. And before I knew it, it was just like, oh my God, maybe none of those things led to the exact result I was looking for in the final condition of satisfaction. But nevertheless, it just made me, when I saw it reflected back on myself, it was like, wow, this is like phenomenal what we've been able to do in this quarter.
That's great. And when you put it that way, it sounds very simple,
mm-hmm.
methodical, as I guess a simple methodology that we could all use. What about when you have milestones or things that are leading up to the milestones, and suddenly you realize, that's not fitting into my master plan as well as I thought it would, and then
mm-hmm.
you even contemplate change. What are the processes that you've learned to go through over time to adjust or even change or not disassociate, but just go ahead and divorce certain milestones because, well, the master plan kind of changed or it was affected by something unforeseen, and so we need to shift or shake it up?
Yeah, this is really where team tends to come in. And that's the amazing thing about the design of this program. There is an opportunity about halfway through. They've created this within the program where you can revoke your promises and re-promise and put new promises into place.
Makes sense.
And it's not about like cowering in fear from the hugeness of the goal you set. It's just more like, based on what's happened so far and my activity and everything that I've taken on this quarter, how can I make an adjustment such that we have something that's still ambitious, but totally reachable? And that's going to be the tough part for anybody who's a lone wolf. And let's just face it, everyone's a lone wolf. There's nobody that's ultimately just like the ultimate team player. They don't really exist. Some people are really great at it. They've learned it through experience and skill and holding meetings and sharing a vision with others. And so that's where you're going to run into some problems, is if you try to lone wolf the whole process and you don't get into conversation with your team. And if you don't have a team, not getting into conversation with your mentor or whoever's helping you with the project or coach or somebody is going to stifle you, and you're not going to see it come to fruition. So that's the thing about being human, is when things go wrong, we can get into conversation, but it's the time that we least feel like getting into conversation. But those are going to be the biggest difference makers when we're stuck. We can actually get out of being stuck really fast if we're in conversation.
That makes a lot of sense. And team, whether, as you said, whether it's a mentor, maybe a mastermind, or maybe it's paid staff, even, that they can help us or prevent us, or maybe help us avoid getting caught in chasing milestones that are not necessarily relevant anymore, because things change, or doing whatever that may not be relevant anymore. So that makes a ton of sense. Tell me about the new membership that you're launching. What's it all about, and why do musicians care?
Yeah, well, Elite Players All Access Pass Online Academy is all set up and ready for people to consume. And, beyond being part of the business model or the dream of what we had originally set out to create in the first place, it really is like we interviewed about 7 musicians, kind of asked them, what they were struggling with, what their challenges were, what they would be looking for if they were to join a membership. And for the most part, we don't use that term membership because we just found talking to some musicians that they got stuck on that. And so it's like, it's a community or an online academy. That's really what we're creating. And so there's a forum where we can all brainstorm and mastermind and come up with ideas and help each other in our careers. I mean, it sounds really good in theory and practice. Yeah, there's a little bit of holding back, or there's a little bit of people not quite engaging, but when it works incredibly well. People are sharing their progress journals and what they did last week and what they've accomplished. There's all the courses I've basically created to date are in there, including some archive trainings that we're no longer supporting as part of the Music Entrepreneur HQ ecosystem. And they're still good. We're just going to create better versions of them down the line. You get access to the Renegade Musician System, which is always ongoing and growing and getting better as we continue to look for, like, it's sort of a counterculture or really reverse model, music career model kind of way of approaching your career, thinking differently about who you are, generating yourself as a leader, not as someone who's just like, oh, the system is what it is, I can't do anything about it. Really creating yourself as a leader and taking ownership of your career. And so, the benefits include figuring out your direction in your music career, getting clarity and focus. I really shine in that area. I help people find their brand. I help people find the clarity that they need right now and the inspiration. Like, for me, those go together: clarity, inspiration, focus. When you have the right thing, all 3 of those things are present, and you're going to have a hard time not acting on it, because that's how excited you're going to be. You're going to be like so clear that you're like, oh, this is what I got to do next. I do that very well. Increased income in their music careers, and that means more sustainability and more profitability and less reliance on single source dependence, right? Less reliance on just live gigs, or because in the last couple of years that's kind of sucked. I know they're sort of coming back, but yeah, there's a lot of political healthcare challenges right now, and I don't see it getting easier for the time being. I really hope it will soon, but just not right now. And people who are looking to grow their brand and figure out how to share their music online and make an income online. So those are some of the benefits of Elite Players All Access Pass. And like it sounds, it's a premium membership. It's not for everyone, but for those who've taken this seriously, I've looked at all the other programs out there, and mine still stands as, even though it's not cheap, it's not the most expensive either.
And what did you find? What things stand out in your mind when you back up to those conversations that you had with musicians to learn what they were struggling with and what they'd like to be better at and so forth? What are the things, that were common or most, I guess, stand out to you?
I'm glad you asked that. Music licensing was actually a big one that came out as sort of a commonality for people. And I can totally get why, because really the conversations out there about with interviews, even the ones that I've done, and they've been really great. I'm not like criticizing the guests or anything. They're super inspirational, but they're not informative enough to contain the step-by-step of how do we actually license our music.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I felt they're really important to include that module. Besides the things we already heard and we'd created, like, let's help you get your digital marketing sorted out. Let's help you think a little bit more like an entrepreneur, because that's part of the Music Entrepreneur HQ ecosystem, taking a business-based approach to your career. Really, how can we get you set up successfully in music licensing and placements? So we created music licensing school, because right out the gate, we're like, yeah, we got to create that. That's not in place. And that's one that we'll continually be adding to as well with the latest stuff that we can find to help people. But I think, the thing that sometimes gets lost is, like, it still is relationship. And, I know that conferences have now moved online, so most of us don't have an excuse not to go anymore. I don't think ticket prices are overly prohibitive anymore either. I'm pretty sure DIY Musician Conference was free this year. I couldn't go. I had some other stuff going on. But yeah, the reality is you got virtual conferences, majority are free, and you have an opportunity to connect with a lot of people that you just wouldn't be able to otherwise. And so let's build those relationships in helping us succeed in music licensing and placements.
Yeah, it's one thing that never changes, right? The relationship facet of it.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's a hot topic, I think, and it's a mystery for some and a frustration for others, the whole licensing and sync thing. So
Yeah.
I love hearing that you guys are offering that. Now, wrapping up, are you making any time for your own music, or have you done some stuff in the recent past, got some things planned for the future?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that as well. So this quarter, the last 2 quarters, we really felt like what we were able to accomplish with Sahakarini was a success. And, we got multiple modules built out for the membership. And I even have the new version of the Music Entrepreneur Code on pre-order on Amazon now. And so, this quarter, I wanted to focus on completion. Really, the theme of this quarter is actually completion in the program that I'm in. And one area of my life that I wanted to bring completion to was this album that I started working on in 2008. And the songs were all written and they were practiced and they were rehearsed and they were ready to go. And then I got together with a producer and we started working on it. And some of the arrangements weren't worked out in advance. So he kind of pulled out of the project halfway through, kind of left me, whatever state I was in at the time. And I was able to get my tracks from him. It obviously ruined the friendship in a big way too. I was finally able to get the tracks from him, but when I did, they were all mislabeled and I would have had to drag them into place. And it just would not have been a pleasant process to recreate the tracks from that. As sad as I am, because we had a really great drummer play on it, really great cellist play on it and so forth. And that's kind of lost forever. But, the album still has to come out and it's been too long, it's been over 10 years. And so in whatever shape it comes out, there's no, unlike some of my previous projects, there's no one investing in this one. There's no one throwing a whole bunch of money behind it. So it really is from a home operation. And I'm having other musicians record from their homes too, because I like that home vibe. And from what I've heard from my fans too, they seem to like the loose demo vibe as well. And it's still going to sound great, I think. But we're just going to have some fun with that this quarter. And it's an aggressive schedule to get an album done in 3 months or less, but it'll be a blast.
Cool. Well, I look forward to hearing it. Now, you have to back up. I have one more for you. You have to back up. You said something about an Amazon pre-order. What is that for?
Yeah. So I have, you may know, I have 5 books out there already. And last year we came out with the Music Entrepreneur Code. I hinted at that in the show that we were on in 2019. And that it did really well. It became another bestseller for us, and a lot of people picked it up and had to read through it. And so we heard a lot of great things about it, like we do with all of our books. Oddly enough, we always hear great things about it. The one thing that I heard that may have, there was room for improvement, as it were, was just in sharing my story. Something that was heart-centered and connective and people could relate to, and artists could see that, like, I didn't just, rise to popularity and fame, and that's arguable anyway. There was a process to get to where I am now, being an award-winning composer and being a best-selling author and podcaster of over 10 years. There was a process to all of it. And I wanted to get that in there. So that's why I revised the Music Entrepreneur Code, added about 30 pages of fresh content, more tools and resources, more opportunities, more ninja, as I've been saying. I don't like to talk about updates and revisions, so it's more ninja. And we're just having some fun with that. So you can pre-order the latest version. It won't just be a Kindle, it'll be a paperback and hardcover as well.
Cool. So it's a new ninja edition of
exactly. It's with more ninja. Yeah.
I love it, man. Well, thank you again for coming on. It sounds like things are really rocking for you. I look forward to an update in the coming year, because I know that'll be here before we know it. And I really look forward to hearing your new music, man.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
You got it. This episode was powered by Bandzoogle, the platform for musicians and bands to build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle features powerful design options, a commission-free store to sell music, merch, and tickets. detailed fan data, integrations with social networks, and more. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes a free custom domain name. Try it at bandzoogle.com and use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO. Did you know you can help other independent musicians find the Unstarving Musician by following or subscribing on your audio platform of choice? Well, now you do, and it really does help. And if you have feedback, please go to unstarvingmusician.com to get all my contact info. You can text me, call me, email me, leave a voice message right there on that page. Just go down to the bottom of the page and you'll find everything you need to know. I really would love to hear any of your comments, suggestions, questions, whatever you've got. And you can find links to just about everything talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. All right, I'm peacing out. Thank you for listening and sharing with your musician friends and fellow indie music fans. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.